So here are a couple of baby developmental myths from me, a pediatric occupational therapist, that I am debunking and that you might think it's normal, but it's not. Number one is when your baby's head is flat and when it's starting to misshape. And they say that it's just cosmetic. It is not cosmetic because the baby's skull is so moldable. And especially with babies who are premature and even with babies who are full term, I have noticed and I have seen that when babies' skulls are misshapen, either brachycephaly, which is flat spot right behind the head, or a flat spot on the left or right sides, or flat spots on both sides, which makes the head a lot more elongated. Typically, what happens is that the skull needs space to grow. For example, if you have a left side that is very flat, you're going to start bulging on your right side because the skull needs to grow. And your brain needs to be able to mold and to be able to have space to be able to grow within the skull. But it's not only the brain that's also impacted, but it's also the structure of your skull. So for example, if you have a little bit more of a bulge out here from your eye, it could potentially affect the way that you're tracking. If you also have a little bit more of asymmetry, or you have a little bit more of a bulge out here near your ear, again, it's going to impact your hearing. It can also impact your sinuses because if you're bulging and your face and everything starts to kind of misshapen, this is going to misshapen, and also your jaw and everything else is going to end up misshapen as well, which can lead to issues later on with breathing and eating. So all these different things are domino effects. And that's why it's very important to really seek out help if you notice that your baby has a really significant flat spot, or more so just a regular flat spot, because typically it can go hand in hand with torticollis. And torticollis, again, is when there's shortening of the muscle of the neck and the baby is particularly tilting their head over to that one side. And that again can lead to other issues. So check out my videos up here when it comes to torticollis, plagiocephaly. I have a whole series on that alone with multiple different types of videos explaining all these different things. So that is myth number one. That drives me nuts. So number two, let's go ahead and dive into this one. Now, number two is when chunkier babies reach milestones a lot more slowly and they will not reach them on time. Now, chunkier babies who are a lot more bigger than others might have a little bit more of a harder time when it comes to moving against gravity, but they typically do end up meeting their milestones 100%, no matter what size they are, no matter how heavy they are. It's important to know that chunkier babies are not always delayed. They're not delayed at all whatsoever. So they hit their milestones like they're supposed to. They might have a little bit more difficulty when it comes to overall movement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to hit their milestones like they're supposed to. So that's the myth number two. Skipping crawling is okay. No, it's not. Totally not okay, especially from this particular occupational therapist here. Crawling is very important because crawling really helps develop the arches of the hand. It helps develop the depth perception of your eyes. So being able to go down the stairs, coordination is something that is also developed in crawling. And it's not just coordination of the legs, but it's coordination of all four limbs. And it's really utilizing both sides of the brain at the same time when the baby is crawling on all fours. And the baby needs to crawl on all fours and symmetrically, not asymmetrically. So crawling is super important. And I do not understand why the CDC ended up taking crawling out of the milestones. I have no clue why they did that. They didn't even consult with a therapist, if you guys are aware of that. But it drives me nuts when when doctors end up saying that crawling is okay because 30% of the population doesn't crawl, so on and so forth. But us as therapists, we end up seeing these little ones later on in school where they end up having reading issues, handwriting issues, other issues that start arising overall. And they might seem subtle to some of the doctors or subtle to some of the parents, but it can make a big difference when it comes to having the baby crawl and having the baby crawl symmetrically on all fours. So check out the videos on my crawling videos that I am having a series on. So check those out. Number 4 is babies are born with asymmetrical differences and they will eventually go away. Typically, yes, they are born asymmetrically. Usually they do end up preferring some sort of side. Again, it really depends on how your baby was positioned in utero. If they were breeched, again, if they were leaning more towards one side versus the other side when it comes to, head down. But it's very important to know that when the baby comes out of utero and they're born, it typically goes away at 8 weeks. So by 2 months, the baby should be a lot more symmetrical. The baby should really turn to both sides when it comes to the head turning. And then also the baby should be able to track with the eyes as well too. And then eventually be able to reach with both hands. Hand preference, which leads me to number 5. My baby already has a hand preference. No, they do not have a hand preference till typically the age of 3 to 4 years of age. This is when they start picking one particular hand to be able to eat, to be able to write, to be able to catch a ball, so on and so forth. So a baby does not have a hand preference. Now, typically if you end up seeing your baby at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months old, and they're constantly wanting to pick up things with the right hand, please start making sure that your baby is also utilizing the left hand as well too. So both sides of the body are very important. Making sure that you're offering things right smack in the middle of the body so they're able to pick which hand to utilize. Now, typically if they have really, really strong right hand preference, which is just an example, make sure that you're giving everything over to the left side so they can start utilizing that left side of the body as well too to stimulate that right side of the brain. So again, hand preference doesn't come in until the age of 3 to 4 years of age. And this is typically because we want both sides of the body to be symmetrical, as symmetrical as possible, and to be able to practice those reaching skills with both hands. That way you are utilizing the intrinsic muscles of the fingers and developing the forearm muscles, the shoulder muscles, everything. Now, number 6, floor seats definitely help my baby sit upright. No, they do not. They do not. Floor seats or seats in general, they do not help babies sit. Now, am I telling you not to have a floor seat at all whatsoever? Not necessarily. High chairs are about the same thing as floor seats, right? It's basically helping the baby position themselves in an upright position. But typically floor seats do not help babies sit because the baby sitting on their own, it really helps them to sit on the floor without really any support. Obviously, you're gonna, if the baby doesn't have any trunk support, head support, then they're not ready for sitting, obviously. This is kind of where it leads to the baby having issues or trouble when it comes to placing the baby prematurely in a floor seat, and they're not ready for it. They're totally not ready for it. So typically floor seats do not help them, and it's really important to not utilize so much of the floor seats because I really do consider them more so as a container. And it's fine, if you want to place the baby in the floor seat for a couple minutes because you feel like it's going to be a lot more safer for the baby, so they could go ahead and play with any little toys or anything like that, then that's fine. But don't do it more so than 10 to 15, no more than 20 minutes, I would say, because that's really pushing it. So you could go ahead and do what you have to do, but that's typically if the baby has really good trunk support, if the baby is a little bit wobbly and you just want to maintain them in a nice safe spot, then that's totally fine. But the baby, again, has to have good neck control and trunk control more than anything. So seats, the upright seats, you really don't need them. Number 7, tummy time. So timing tummy time, meaning I have to do a minute when they're newborn, and I have to make sure that the baby is doing 2 minutes at this age, so on and so forth. No, not necessarily. You don't have to time tummy time. The number one thing and the ideal thing to do with tummy time, especially for a newborn baby or for babies in general, is making sure that you're doing tummy time up to the point that the baby can tolerate and accept. I don't even like the word tolerate, but more so accept and enjoy. And I'm looking for enjoyment of tummy time because we're doing more so tummy time. It's like, basically the baby leads the way, and you're going to be looking at the baby's cues. And when the baby is done, they are done with tummy time, roll them out of the tummy time and then roll them back into tummy time when they're ready. It's the amount of times that you do it throughout the day, not the full amount of time that you need to make sure that the baby does. So making sure that you're not timing it and not concentrating on the time, but more so focusing on the baby's cues more than anything. Number 8, all babies are mouth breathers, especially newborn babies. No, not necessarily. Actually, nobody should really be a mouth breather, first of all. And babies, especially kids, they should be breathing through their nose. Obviously, if the baby is sick, if the baby has choanal atresia, if they have any other type of facial restrictions or anything like that, I get it. It's totally understandable for the baby to breathe through the mouth. But a baby that was full term, didn't have any other issues or anything like that, it's not okay for the baby or the kid or the child or even the toddler to be breathing with their mouth open. So check out my video up here when it comes to the effects of mouth breathing and what to do about it. Number 9, last but not least, is my baby will learn how to chew, and it's an automatic thing and they know what to do. Not necessarily. It's very important to teach the baby how to chew. Chewing is learned, and it's very important for the baby to be exposed to larger chunks of food before 10 months of age. Super important, because before 10 months of age, they have a stronger gag reflex, which helps the baby protect their airway. And as they're protecting their airway, they're able to take out larger pieces and chunks while still trying to practice more of those chewing skills. Now, mature chewing skills is typically at the age of 2. At the age of 2, that's when the baby starts eating more so like an adult. And what happens when you are offering constantly puree food throughout the entire time, which I have seen that happen 100% of the time when these kiddos are picky eaters and they come into clinic, then I end up noticing that they just don't know how to chew and they don't have the muscles and the capacity to be able to chew harder foods. I'm pretty much done with all these 9 different myths, developmental baby myths that I feel are very important for parents to know. Hopefully you guys like this video, and comment below with what you guys want to know. And if you guys have any other questions as well too. So subscribe and share and hit the notification bell. Have a good day.